My boss said, "You'll never work here again." 4 hours later he was begging for his job. Hi, I'm Madison Blake, and I'm 28 years old. What happened to me last month will change how you think about workplace power dynamics forever. Before I tell you how I went from being humiliated in my boss's office to watching him beg for mercy in just 4 hours, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below. If you love stories where underestimated women destroy arrogant bosses using nothing but persistence and perfect timing, this channel is your new obsession. Now let me tell you how one man's cruelest words became his career's death sentence. I'm sitting in my boss's office as he leans back in his leather chair, fingers steepled like some corporate villain from a movie. His smug smile makes my skin crawl as he taps a manila folder marked, "Confidential," on his desk. "Madison, this isn't working out," he says, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Your performance has been disappointing." My stomach drops, but I keep my eyes steady. 3 years of perfect reviews, countless late nights, and projects that saved this company millions, all dismissed with one word. Behind him, his wall of awards and certificates seems to mock me, including the ethical leadership plaque I helped him earn through my work. "You'll never work here again," he continues, clearly enjoying every syllable. "Security will escort you out within the hour." He has no idea what's coming. As I sit there, pretending to process his words, I'm actually calculating. The audit assignment he gave me 6 weeks ago. The financial discrepancies I'd been tracking obsessively. The sleepless nights spent cross-referencing payment authorizations with vendor registrations. In 4 hours, this man's entire world will collapse. But right now, even I don't know if I have enough evidence to destroy him, or if my suspicions will destroy me instead. I walk through the office carrying my cardboard box while coworkers suddenly find their computer screens fascinating. The walk of shame every fired employee knows too well, but this time it feels different. My hands aren't shaking because I'm devastated. They're shaking because I'm terrified and furious in equal measure, clutching secrets that could topple the entire executive team. Behind me, I hear whispers, "Madison got fired." I can't believe it. She was working late every night on something big. That last comment from Janet in accounting makes me pause. Who else knew about my investigation? I'd been so careful, working only after hours, using my audit credentials to access files that technically fell within my scope. But as I passed the finance department, I noticed Brad Coleman watching me intently. Brad, who always seemed to know which vendors Mark favored, who handled the invoice processing for Vanguard Apex. Could Mark have had help? Could there be other people involved in this scheme? The possibility terrifies me more than unemployment ever could, because it means I might not just be fighting one corrupt boss, I might be up against an entire network. 7 weeks earlier, Mark had called me into his office with what seemed like a routine assignment, though looking back, his nervous energy should have been a red flag. "Madison, I need you to conduct a comprehensive audit of our vendor payment systems. Focus on efficiency metrics and cost optimization opportunities," he'd said, avoiding direct eye contact. "Full access to all vendor files, payment authorizations, everything." It sounded boring but important, exactly the kind of analytical work I excelled at. What Mark didn't know was that I'd been quietly questioning some vendor relationships for months, ever since I noticed Brad Coleman processing unusually large payments to companies I'd never heard of. Strange payment patterns that didn't match our project timelines. Shell companies with no online presence. Invoices for strategic consulting services that never resulted in any visible deliverables or strategic changes. When Mark handed me official audit authorization with his signature and the company seal, I thought I'd finally get answers to questions that had been nagging at me since I started working here. I had no idea I was about to uncover the biggest fraud scheme in company history, or that the man who assigned me to find it was the mastermind behind it all. But why would Mark voluntarily authorize an audit that could expose his own crimes? That question would haunt me for weeks. The first red flag appeared during week 2 of my audit when I discovered a series of payments to Vanguard Apex Consulting, $340,000 in 3 months for strategic optimization services. But when I cross-referenced their deliverables with our project management system, I found nothing. No reports, no meeting minutes, no evidence they'd ever provided any service whatsoever. Even more suspicious, the payment schedule perfectly coincided with Mark's quarterly bonus calculations. I spent hours searching for Vanguard Apex online. No website, no corporate listing, no employee profiles on LinkedIn. For a company receiving hundreds of thousands in payments, they had zero digital footprint, impossible in today's connected business world. That's when I started keeping everything on an encrypted drive, a habit my paranoid cybersecurity professor had drilled into me during my MBA program. At first, it was just due diligence, documenting my findings in case anyone questioned my audit methodology. But as the evidence piled up, I realized I might be holding dynamite that could level the entire company. $2.3 million in payments to companies that seemed to exist only on paper. And every authorization bore Mark's digital signature, authenticated with his personal access codes. The pattern was too consistent to be accidental and too sophisticated to be careless. I rush home to my apartment, my heart pounding with a mixture of rage and uncertainty. My laptop sits on my kitchen table like a loaded weapon I'm not sure how to fire safely. I plug in the USB drive and stare at 6 weeks of painstaking investigation. Payment authorizations, shell company registrations, vendor contracts with no deliverables. But is it enough to survive a legal challenge? The evidence is compelling but circumstantial. Suspicious patterns, but not definitive proof of criminal intent. Mark could claim the payments were legitimate, that I misunderstood complex business arrangements that were above my clearance level. But there's one piece of evidence I've been afraid to pursue, worried about overstepping my audit authority and triggering cybersecurity alerts. A name that kept appearing in financial records, see Arden Holdings. I'd been too scared to investigate it thoroughly, knowing that accessing corporate registration databases might leave digital footprints that could expose my investigation. Now I have nothing left to lose. I open my laptop, bypass my company VPN to avoid leaving traces, and start the search that will either vindicate my suspicions or prove I'm chasing shadows that could ruin an innocent man's career. The registration search loads slowly, and my hands tremble as I wait for results that could change everything. 25 minutes of careful database searching reveals what I'd hoped and feared. See, Arden Holdings is a privately held company registered in Delaware, incorporated 18 months ago. The owner information is public record, but buried in legal documentation that requires patience to decode. Clive Mark Arden. My boss Mark's full legal name, including a middle name he never uses professionally. My hands tremble as I cross-reference the business registration date with the first payment to Vanguard Apex. The shell company started receiving money exactly 2 weeks after Mark formed his holding company, timing too precise to be coincidental. But it gets worse. Digging deeper into the corporate structure, I discover that Arden Holdings owns 4 different consulting companies, all receiving payments from our vendor system. The fraud is systematic, sophisticated, and has been running for over a year. This isn't circumstantial anymore. This is systematic fraud with clear personal benefit. I grab my phone and text my best friend Claire, "Remember how I thought Mark was shady? I just proved he's a criminal." Her reply comes instantly, "OMG Madison. What did you find?" Evidence that could send him to federal prison. But I'm scared I'm in over my head. Are you absolutely sure? Like, really sure? That question stops me cold. The evidence is overwhelming, but what if I'm missing something? What if there's a legitimate explanation I can't see? I spend the next 2 hours double-checking every piece of evidence, looking for holes in my theory that a good defense attorney could exploit. The more I investigate, the more damning it becomes. But I need an outside perspective. Someone with financial expertise who can tell me if I'm seeing crimes or just complex business arrangements that I don't understand. I remember Marcus Clark from last month's company party. He's a senior partner at Clearwater Capital, one of our major investors. He'd cornered me near the bar, asking pointed questions about our vendor relationships in a way that suggested he was following his own suspicions. Madison, you work closely with financial operations, right? Have you noticed anything unusual about expense allocations? Particularly payments to companies that seem to provide intangible services? At the time, I'd given him vague corporate speak, not wanting to spread rumors. But his questions had been too specific, too targeted. Marcus wasn't fishing randomly, he was investigating something concrete. If I'm wrong about Marcus will set me straight and possibly save me from destroying an innocent man's career. If I'm right, he'll know what to do with evidence this explosive. But once I make this call, I become a whistleblower with all the legal protections and professional risks that entails. My phone feels heavy in my hands as I scroll to his contact information. Marcus picks up on the second ring, and I can hear the surprise in his voice. Madison? This is unexpected. Why are you calling so late? I take a deep breath, knowing these next words will transform me from employee to informant. Because I think I've found what you were looking for at the company party. The unusual expense allocations you asked about. The line goes silent for a long moment, and I can almost hear him calculating the implications. What kind of allocations? His voice has shifted to all business. The kind that show $2.3 million in payments to shell companies owned by Mark Hutchinson. The kind that could constitute systematic embezzlement conducted through fraudulent vendor relationships. Another pause, longer this time. Madison, those are serious allegations that could destroy careers and trigger federal investigations. Do you have documentation that would stand up to legal scrutiny? 6 weeks of audit findings. Payment authorizations, shell company registrations, vendor contracts with no deliverables. But I need someone with your expertise to tell me if this is actually criminal or just creative accounting that I don't understand. Send me everything. Right now. Use the encrypted server I'm texting you. My finger hovers over the send button. Once I hit this, I become a whistleblower with federal legal protections, but also a target for retaliation. I attach the complete audit file to an encrypted email, including my analysis of corporate relationships and timeline correlations. My chest tightens as the progress bar crawls toward completion, uploading evidence that could send my former boss to federal prison. But even as I'm sending evidence to Marcus, doubt creeps in like poison. What if I'm wrong? What if there's a legitimate explanation for everything? What if Mark finds out and destroys me legally and professionally? The email sends successfully after what feels like an eternity. Now I wait, knowing that Marcus is reviewing evidence that took me 6 weeks to compile. My phone stays silent for exactly 14 minutes. Then it explodes with an incoming call. Madison. Marcus's voice is ice-cold and deadly serious. This isn't creative accounting. This is organized financial fraud conducted with premeditation and sophisticated concealment methods. Relief floods through me. I'm not crazy. I'm not seeing criminal patterns that don't exist. But Madison, there's a critical problem. The evidence is compelling, but we need more than suspicious payment patterns. We need proof of intent, evidence of personal benefit, communications that demonstrate deliberate criminal activity. My heart sinks. What kind of evidence? Bank records showing money flowing to Mark's personal accounts. Email communications discussing the scheme. Something that proves deliberate criminal intent rather than just administrative incompetence. The legal standard is higher than I expected, and I realize my evidence might not be enough. I don't have access to Mark's personal banking information, I tell Marcus, frustration creeping into my voice. My audit authority only covers company-vendor relationships. Then we need to be strategic about this. If Mark is as smart as his scheme suggests, he's covered his tracks carefully. We need him to reveal himself through his own actions. Marcus pauses, and I can hear him thinking through possibilities. Madison, you said he fired you today. Did he give a specific reason? Poor performance. But I've had perfect reviews for 3 years and just completed a major project successfully. Then he knows. He fired you because you were getting too close to the truth. The realization hits me like ice water. Mark didn't fire me because of performance issues. He fired me because he discovered I was investigating him, but how did he find out? Marcus, if he knows what I've found, won't he destroy evidence? Probably. Unless we force his hand first, make him think you know more than you actually do. How? By making him paranoid enough to contact you directly. Criminals always overestimate how much investigators know, and they usually try to control the narrative. The strategy sounds dangerous, but it might be my only chance to get the evidence we need. While I'm on the phone with Marcus, my laptop pings with a news alert that makes my blood run cold. Hutchinson Industries stock drops 4% on investor concerns about financial transparency. Someone leaks something to financial blogs. Word is spreading through investor networks that Mark's company might have transparency issues that warrant investigation. Marcus, did you contact anyone else about this? I made some discreet inquiries with fellow board members. Nothing specific, just general concerns about vendor oversight and financial controls. So the leak isn't from my evidence directly, but from Marcus's investigation. The financial community is starting to ask questions, and that creates pressure that could force Mark into making mistakes. My phone buzzes with a text from Claire. Girl, check the business news. Something's breaking about your company. This is moving fast. I type back, I know. I might have accidentally started a wildfire that I can't control. But then I realize something that makes my blood freeze. If investors are asking questions, Mark knows his scheme is under scrutiny. He'll either run or fight, and fighting means coming after me. The phone call I'm expecting might be more dangerous than I anticipated. My phone rings with an unknown number 20 minutes later. Every instinct tells me to ignore it, but Marcus's strategy requires me to engage directly with Mark. Madison, it's me. Mark's voice is completely different from this afternoon. The smugness is gone, replaced by something I've never heard from him before, carefully controlled panic masked as professional concern. Mark. What a surprise. I thought our professional relationship was concluded. Listen, there's been a misunderstanding. Some investors are asking detailed questions about vendor relationships, and they specifically mentioned concerns about audit findings. My pulse quickens. He's fishing to see what I know and who I've talked to, but he's also revealing that he's monitoring investor communications. That's strange. I thought my audit work was disappointing. Madison, I may have been hasty today. These investor concerns have me reconsidering some personnel decisions and wondering if I acted too quickly. He's trying to gauge my knowledge without revealing his guilt. But his very call proves Marcus was right. Mark knows his scheme is under investigation and he's terrified about what I might have uncovered. Mark, I'm confused. This afternoon you said my performance was disappointing and had security escort me out. Now you're reconsidering personnel decisions? The situation has evolved. I've had time to review your audit work more carefully, and I realize I may have misinterpreted some of your findings. What findings specifically? I'm testing him, seeing how much he knows about my investigation while recording the entire conversation on my phone. Madison, did you discuss your audit findings with anyone outside the company? Any investors, financial analysts, or regulatory contacts? There it is. He knows I've talked to someone, but he doesn't know who or what I revealed. The paranoia in his voice is exactly what Marcus predicted. Why would I discuss internal audit findings with outsiders? That would be completely inappropriate and probably illegal. Of course. But investors sometimes ask detailed questions, and employees sometimes answer without realizing the implications for ongoing business relationships. He's terrified I've exposed him, but he can't accuse me directly without revealing his own guilt. The conversation is a careful dance where both of us know more than we're saying. Mark, I'm not sure what you're getting at. Are you suggesting I've done something wrong? Mark's voice drops to a whisper, like he's afraid someone might be listening to his own phone calls. Madison, maybe we should meet tomorrow. Discuss your career trajectory at the company in light of new information I've received. I thought you fired me. I said the situation has evolved. Perhaps there's a path forward that benefits everyone involved. Now I understand Marcus's strategy perfectly. Mark is terrified I have evidence of his crimes, but he doesn't know exactly what I've uncovered. He's trying to bring me back to control the narrative and assess the threat I represent. What kind of path forward? A significant promotion. Substantial salary increase. A role that would give you real influence over company financial operations and direct access to executive decision-making. The irony is bitter. Hours ago he fired me for poor performance. Now he's offering me everything I've ever wanted professionally, because he's terrified of what I know. That's very generous, Mark. But I'm not sure I'm interested in working for someone who questions my competence and professionalism. Madison, please. There are aspects of this situation that are more complex than they appear. Come to the office tomorrow. Let's discuss this properly with full transparency. The desperation in his voice is exactly what we need for the next phase of Marcus's strategy. Of course. Complete transparency. During my audit, I found some vendor payments that confused me. Significant amounts to companies I couldn't research effectively using normal business databases. Should I be concerned about anything from a compliance perspective? The silence stretches so long I wonder if he hung up, but I can hear his breathing becoming more rapid. What company specifically? Vanguard Apex Consulting was the primary concern. $340,000 in payments over 3 months, but I couldn't find any deliverables or evidence of services rendered. Another long pause where I can practically hear him calculating how much I know and how much danger he's in. That's a complex arrangement. Highly confidential strategic consulting for sensitive business development initiatives. Very sensitive competitive intelligence work. He's lying, and we both know it. But he can't admit the company doesn't exist without confessing to fraud. Oh, that makes sense. I'm sorry if my audit questions created any compliance concerns. Madison, it's crucial that we discuss this in person tomorrow. There are aspects of these relationships that require careful explanation. The recording I'm making will be crucial evidence if this escalates to federal prosecution. I don't sleep that night. Instead, I spend hours analyzing every piece of evidence, looking for gaps that could destroy my credibility in court or allow Mark to escape prosecution. By 6 a.m., I'm reviewing corporate filings when I discover something that changes everything. See, Arden Holdings has 3 additional subsidiary companies, all incorporated in different states, all receiving payments from vendors in our system. The fraud is even bigger than I thought, potentially $4.2 million over 18 months. By morning, Hutchinson Industries releases an emergency statement. The board of directors will conduct a comprehensive review of vendor relationships and financial controls in response to investor inquiries. Within an hour, the stock drops another 12% as major investors demand detailed financial audits. Reporters are calling the corporate offices asking about alleged financial irregularities. The carefully constructed facade Mark built is cracking under mounting pressure. But here's what terrifies me: I started this avalanche with incomplete evidence. What if Mark can explain everything? What if I've destroyed an innocent man's career based on suspicions and circumstantial patterns? My phone starts ringing with job offers from competing firms. Apparently, Word spreads fast about talented auditors who get fired right before major financial scandals break. But I'm not celebrating yet. I need absolute certainty before I destroy someone's life. By evening, the story hits major business news. Hutchinson Industries CEO under investor scrutiny for vendor relationship irregularities. Mark's photo appears alongside articles questioning his financial management and corporate governance. But the coverage is still speculative, alleged irregularities, and investor concerns, rather than criminal accusations. No one has direct proof of criminal activity yet, which means Mark still has time to cover his tracks or retaliate against me. My phone buzzes with a text from Marcus, board meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. They want to review vendor relationships in detail. Are you prepared to present your findings under oath? I stare at the message, realizing I'm at a point of no return. Tomorrow, I'll have to stand before the board and present evidence that could send my former boss to federal prison. But what if my evidence isn't as solid as I think? What if there are legitimate explanations for everything that I missed in my investigation? The doubt is eating me alive, because once I testify before the board, there's no taking it back. My laptop pings with an encrypted message from an anonymous sender. You're not the only one investigating. Be careful who you trust. The message includes a partial bank record showing wire transfers from Arden Holdings to an offshore account. Someone else is investigating Mark's scheme and has access to financial records I can't obtain. He calls again at 9 p.m., and this time his voice cracks with barely controlled desperation. Madison, I need to see you tonight. This situation is spiraling out of control, and there are things about these vendor relationships that require immediate clarification. What situation? The board is demanding detailed vendor audits. They want to review every payment authorization from the past 2 years with forensic accountants. My heart pounds. If they review everything with forensic experts, they'll find the same patterns I found. But with the resources to trace the money all the way to Mark's personal accounts. That sounds like a good thing. Transparency builds investor confidence. Madison, please. There are things about these vendor relationships that are nuanced. Complex business arrangements that might appear irregular to outside observers who don't understand the full context. He's begging me to help him cover up his crimes, but he's also revealing that he knows exactly how guilty he looks. Mark, are you asking me to misrepresent my audit findings to the board? I'm asking you to help me provide proper context. To explain these arrangements so the board understands their legitimate business purpose and strategic value. There it is. He wants me to commit perjury to protect his criminal enterprise. But I keep him talking, recording everything while Marcus listens on a separate line. Against every instinct in Marcus's strong objections, I agree to meet him. But only in a crowded cafe downtown where there are witnesses, security cameras, and no chance of being physically intimidated. When he walks through the door at 10 p.m., I barely recognize him. His expensive suit is wrinkled, his tie loose, his face pale and drawn. He looks like he's aged 10 years in 24 hours. This is the same man who lounged in his leather chair yesterday, casually destroying my career for sport. Now he looks like a cornered animal searching desperately for an escape route. He sits across from me, hands shaking as he orders coffee he'll never drink. The cafe is nearly empty, but the security cameras are recording everything. Madison, I need you to understand something. Those vendor payments you questioned, they're part of a complex restructuring strategy. Highly confidential, legally protected under attorney-client privilege. I lean forward, studying his face for tells. What kind of restructuring strategy requires shell companies incorporated in multiple states? They're not shell companies. They're specialized consulting firms with very discrete operational models that require privacy for competitive reasons. He's lying, and his desperation is making him sloppy. Every word is being recorded for potential federal prosecution. Mark leans across the small table, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper that the recording equipment barely captures. Madison, I'll offer you whatever you want. Associate Director position. $180,000 salary. Stock options that could be worth millions. Executive parking, corner office, direct report to the CEO. Just help me explain these vendor relationships to the board. The transformation is stunning. Yesterday he fired me because I was replaceable. Today he's offering me everything I've ever wanted professionally. Mark, let me make sure I understand. You want me to tell the board that $4.2 million in payments to companies with no deliverables represents legitimate business expenses? His face goes white. I've just revealed that I know the full scope of his fraud, including the additional subsidiary companies. How did you? He stops himself, realizing he's about to confess. I'm a forensic auditor, Mark. It's literally my job to trace financial relationships and identify patterns of irregular activity. Madison, you don't understand the full complexity of these arrangements. There are national security implications, government contracts, things that can't be disclosed publicly. He's getting creative with his lies, but also revealing how desperate he's become. Show me the government contracts. Show me any documentation that proves these payments are legitimate. The silence stretches until he realizes he can't produce evidence that doesn't exist. I lean back in my chair and deliver the line that will haunt him forever. Mark, I have something important to tell you. He leans forward eagerly, probably expecting me to offer some kind of deal or compromise. I recorded our phone conversations last night. All of them. The color drains completely from his face as the implications hit him. You have audio of me asking you to misrepresent audit findings to the board. You have proof that I know these vendor payments are questionable and that I'm trying to cover them up. His hands start trembling so violently he has to grip the table to steady himself. Madison, please. You don't understand the full situation. There are other people involved, people who will be hurt if this comes out. Then name them. Tell me who else is involved in stealing from the company. I can't. It's too dangerous. He's just admitted that other people are involved in the fraud, which makes this a criminal conspiracy rather than individual embezzlement. Mark, you said I was nothing without you. Funny how you're nothing without my silence. That afternoon, the board makes their decision with stunning swiftness. Mark Hutchinson is suspended immediately pending a comprehensive forensic investigation conducted by federal auditors. By evening, FBI agents are carrying boxes of evidence out of his office while reporters capture everything on camera. The video goes viral, a man who spent his career destroying others' careers, now watching federal agents dismantle his professional life. But the story gets more complex. Brad Coleman from accounting is also suspended, along with 2 other executives I'd never suspected of involvement. My phone buzzes with a message from Mark. Madison, this is bigger than you know. I'll give you anything if you help me contain this. I stare at the message, realizing he's admitting that I've uncovered something massive that could bring down multiple people. Mark, you said I was nothing without you. Turns out you're nothing without my evidence. Then I forward his message to Marcus and block his number permanently. The criminal conspiracy is unraveling faster than anyone imagined. The next morning brings vindication beyond my wildest expectations. Hutchinson Industries CEO and 3 executives removed following federal fraud investigation. But the story gets even better. The interim CEO is Sandra Burke, a brilliant woman Mark consistently overlooked for promotion because she supposedly lacked executive presence. Sandra calls me personally that afternoon with an offer that takes my breath away. Madison, I owe you an enormous apology. Mark convinced us your termination was performance-related. We now know he fired you because you were exposing a criminal conspiracy that could have bankrupted the company. I'm just glad the truth came out before more damage was done. The board has authorized me to offer you any position you want. Chief Financial Officer, Director of Internal Audit, whatever you think would best serve the company. She offers me Mark's old job, Vice President of Financial Operations, at double my previous salary. But I've already accepted Marcus Clark's offer to join Clearwater Capital as their Senior Forensic Audit Specialist, leading investigations into corporate fraud across multiple companies. The phone calls from other firms haven't stopped. Apparently, exposing a $4.2 million fraud scheme makes you very popular in the forensic accounting world. As I stand in my new corner office at Clearwater Capital, I can't help but smile at the cosmic irony. My desk overlooks the same downtown area where Mark's company is fighting for survival under federal oversight. Marcus appears in my doorway with a stack of files that represents my new reality. Madison, excellent work on the Hutchinson case. We have 7 other companies requesting similar forensic audits. Word spreads fast about auditors who find what others miss. My phone rings with another job application from a former Hutchinson Industries employee. Apparently, half the accounting department wants to join a firm that values integrity over politics. In the span of a week, I've gone from being fired for poor performance to being the most sought-after forensic auditor in the region. My assistant brings me a newspaper clipping. Former Hutchinson Industries CEO indicted on federal fraud charges along with 3 co-conspirators. Mark and his accomplices are facing 20 years in federal prison. His assets have been frozen, his reputation destroyed, his criminal enterprise exposed. But the investigation is still expanding. Federal auditors have found evidence of similar schemes at 2 other companies where Mark previously worked. I didn't just expose one fraud, I uncovered a career criminal who'd been stealing from companies for over a decade. 3 months later, I'm reading the newspaper over my morning coffee when I see the headline that closes this chapter of my life. Former Hutchinson Industries CEO pleads guilty to conspiracy, wire fraud, and money laundering. Mark will spend the next 8 years in federal prison. His co-conspirators received sentences ranging from 3 to 6 years. Their assets have been seized to pay restitution to the company they nearly bankrupted through systematic theft. But the real victory isn't their downfall, it's what came after. Hutchinson Industries, under Sandra Burke's leadership, has become a model for corporate transparency. They've implemented the audit protocols I developed, and the company culture has transformed from fear-based management to collaborative leadership. The federal investigation led to new regulations requiring enhanced vendor oversight across the industry. The Madison Blake Protocol is now standard procedure for financial audits in publicly traded companies. My phone buzzes with a text from Claire, saw the news. How does it feel to single-handedly expose a criminal conspiracy and change an entire industry? I type back, like justice. But also like responsibility. I almost didn't pursue it because I was afraid of being wrong. But you weren't wrong. This time. But it reminds me that evidence and truth aren't always the same thing. I got lucky that my suspicions were correct and that I found people like Marcus who supported me. Mark said I'd never work here again. He was right. I'm working somewhere that actually values the courage to ask difficult questions, even when you're not sure you want to know the answers. And I'm building a career protecting other people from criminals like him. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting justice and making sure it never happens again. If this story proves anything, it's that sometimes the most important investigations are the ones where you're not sure what you'll find. Have you ever discovered something at work that made you question everything? Share your story in the comments. This community celebrates everyone who's had the courage to pursue uncomfortable truths. Smash that like button if you believe the truth is worth pursuing even when it's terrifying. Subscribe and hit the bell for more workplace justice stories where persistence beats corruption. Comment your thoughts. I personally respond to every single message. Share this with anyone who's ever been afraid to investigate something that didn't feel right. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting answers. And having the courage to act on them, even when you're scared of what you might find.